So, hello, this is Matthew Robert Payne, and this is going to be an interview with Michael Jackson. I had a person contact me on YouTube when they watched my video on my interview with Michael Jackson for Michael Jackson Speaks from Heaven, Book 5. And I told her, I responded to Crystal's. Um, uh, Comment on YouTube, and I told her to friend request me on Facebook, and we'll chat. And we've had a few chats and a couple of video conversations. And she was a fan of Michael's and really loves Michael Jackson. And I suggested to her yesterday that she write a number of questions, and we could do an interview with Michael and make book 6 a book about her questions, and she can ask the questions and she can be a co-author. So she's online at the moment, and you'll only hear her voice. She won't be on video. And so we're going to go through her 30 questions in multiple videos. This is going to be part 1, part 2, and so on, depending on how much we speak. And after Michael answers each of her questions that she wrote down, then Michael's going to ask her for a comment, and she's going to say what she thinks about his answer, and then we'll go on to the next question. So the format is, first of all, I'll read the question that Crystal had for him. Then I'll bring Michael Jackson's voice and he'll answer the question, and then we'll ask for Crystal's response, and we'll have Crystal's response, and then we'll go on to the next question. I envisage each answer of each of the questions will be between 5 and 10 minutes, and Crystal's answer will be as long as she takes to answer. And there's no rush, Crystal. You don't have to finish it in 2 minutes. You can talk for 10 minutes about his answer and how it affected you. So we're just going to do this, and we've got no real planning for this, and we're just going to see how it goes. So we'll start with question 1. Why did you guide me to speak to Matthew? Well, in heaven, things are a little different to how they are on earth. In heaven, we are shown videos, like movies, of our whole life, our past life on earth, and we're shown a video or a movie of our whole life in heaven and our future. And so on earth, you have your dreams and your desires, but life on earth can be somewhat planned, but it's somewhat random also. Things just happen as consequences of decisions you make, but you have all these trials and struggles on earth, and you can't really predict with any certainty of what is going to happen. But in heaven, we have purpose, and we have reasons, and we have this video of our future life, for instance, that's able to tell us what we're going to do. So the reason why I guided you to speak to Matthew was twofold. I not only threefold. I not only wanted to speak to you myself, Crystal, I also was told by God that you were going to be responsible for making questions to do Matthew's 6th book, and also threefold, that I consider Matthew a wonderful person, and he'd make a really good friend for you. So number one is I wanted to meet you and speak to you, and for fans, people who read this book, for them to come to understand that I'm just a normal person. And even though I was popular on earth and I was a successful musician and I had a big following, I bleed, you know. We don't bleed in heaven, but I was a human that bled. I was a human that had to go to the toilet a couple of times a day. I had to have showers. I had to change. I had to buy clothes. I had to go shopping. I had to have food in the pantry. I was just a normal person, and people sort of lose sight of the fact that I was an ordinary individual. But my life was different on earth because I was so popular. I couldn't just go down to the regular shops and go shopping. I had to have security and guards around me all the time because people can't help themselves, and they want to meet me, and they wanted to meet me, and it could get very dangerous and so hard for me to live a normal life. And I guess my message to Crystal and my message to everyone listening to this video or reading this book is I just want people to understand that I'm a normal person, and I'd like to be treated like a average person. I'd like to be treated like a real human being and not put on some pedestal, like the king of pop, as though there's no other singer that's going to be as popular as me. And I recognize Matthew saw that my music is outselling all of the world's most popular artists still to this day. And so I recognize that I'm someone who's outstanding, and there's not many people's lights that can shine as bright as me. But the fundamental thing I want to express to people is I'm a normal human being with normal human emotions, and sometimes my emotions can be a deficit, and sometimes I can be not as good as a normal individual. I can have my faults and insecurities. You don't really have insecurities in heaven. Heaven sorts of makes you into somewhat sort of perfect person, but I'm normal. So I guided you to speak to Matthew. I guided you to this book so you could read this book, and guided you to speak to Matthew for a threefold reason, because I wanted to speak to you. I wanted you to write the questions for this book that people are reading now, and I wanted for you to get to know Matthew, because I know Matthew to be a really lovely person, and he'd just make a really good friend for you. And you've got me in common, but you also have a good relationship with Jesus. You're very hungry to be a good Christian and be a good follower of Jesus. And I think that Matthew would be a really good example for your life. And not only do this book, but maybe come up with another 30 questions and do book 7. So you can never tell what your future is when you're on earth. When you're in heaven, you know your future. But I see a relationship with Matthew has a lot of promise, and I can't tell you the future of what I see for your future and Matthew's future from heaven's perspective, because sometimes it can be dangerous or not helpful to know your future. But you and Matthew have got a potential of a good future. So what do you say to that, Crystal?
I'm just like again yesterday, I felt the same way and I'm still feeling it now. But I agree with what Michael was saying.
Yeah. Okay. So question 2, what do you think about people impersonating you? So this is Michael speaking. I really enjoy it. Do you know that people are all different, and they have different skills and different talents. Every single person, I'll tell you this, heaven informs you about what's going to happen on earth, and you're very informed about things that are happening on earth. If a reporter was going to do a story about me on earth, I'd be informed about it. I'd be able to watch the report on TV about them talking about me. If a person is in a talent quest or on one of those shows, America's Got Talent or American Idol, if someone's going to perform one of my songs, I'm told about it. I actually watch people perform my songs. So every single person since I left the earth that's ever sung one of my songs in a talent show or just at a bar in a band doing a cover of one of my songs, every single person who's ever sang a song of mine, I've been a witness to that. I'm even a witness. It's amazing what abilities you have in heaven. I'm even a witness to people just singing one of my songs to themselves in the shower. I can, you may wonder, could I actually see you in the shower? And heaven's people, heaven watching you and watching the earth isn't like your earth, how your earth, it's a bit like Adam and Eve were naked in the garden and there was no shame before sin came into the world, and they took the apple and disobeyed God. But before they disobeyed God, they were naked and they didn't feel any shame and there was no embarrassment. Well, the people in heaven are like that also. They can view you singing one of my songs in the shower, and your nakedness, your nakedness wouldn't be a concern. But I only mentioned singing in the shower because a lot of people only sing in the shower when the noise of the shower is happening because they're embarrassed of all their voices. But you'll be surprised. What are you saying to that, Crystal?
You are absolutely right.
What's that?
I'm laughing because it's true.
Yeah. So many people are embarrassed about their voices, but believe me, if you're a fan of mine and you regularly play my music or you regularly have my music going through your head, and you start singing a song of mine, you'd be surprised when you make it to heaven, if you do the things that are required that the Bible says you need to do to make it to heaven. You'd be surprised that I'll be able to meet you and tell you that I saw you that day singing Man in the Mirror, or I saw you when you're driving your truck and you almost had that accident because you were so into my song. So I'm able to witness. So when you ask the question, what do I think about people impersonating me? People who perform my songs, or people who try and dress like me, or try and style themselves like me, or buy the clothes, or try and represent the clothes that I used to wear. I'm impressed, like any artist who's recorded music, who's recorded songs and lyrics, always seem to be happy with people doing a cover of their song. And even if the person doesn't sing the song as well as you, everyone has got their own idea, and everyone has their different approach, and everyone has a different style. And it's amazing how many different influences people can bring to my songs. And I have to be honest, there are some people in the world, not recognized singers, not potentially recognized singers, but there's some people in the world that sing covers in bands that sing my songs that I feel they do a better job of my song than I do. Some of my songs speak about real issues and pains and life that people go through, and some people actually particularly resonate with my song better than I actually resonated with, and they're able to sing my song better. And one day in heaven, in many years' time, we may actually just have a concert in heaven, and we'll have people singing covers of my songs, and we'll take a vote in heaven of who do they think sang the song best. And I can guarantee you that if we collected thousands of singers, that not every time that the vote was taken would they come up with me being the best one singing the song. There's a lot of really talented people singing my songs. So what do you say to that, Crystal?
I'm just shocked with what you're saying. I try to process all of this.
Do you know some of my songs to yourself? Do you sing some of my songs from time to time?
I'm kind of embarrassed to say this, but I sing most of your songs like every day.
Well, see, Matthew wasn't aware of that. As someone in heaven who's watching over you and has been watching over you before you even contacted us, I'm quite aware of how often you sing my songs, and I'm very happy that my songs bring you joy, and it's one of the chief reasons I lived to bring people joy, and I'm so happy that you are able to share that with people in the book, that you're singing my songs every day, and it's my prayer that so many people can come to get to know me and be able to contact me in heaven and talk to me just like you've been doing. So question 3, what do you think of the world today, and what would you do to change it? The answer to that is the world has become very dark. The world is becoming very evil. Some people who heard this video, or some people who read that in the book, would object to my statement saying the world is becoming very dark and the world is becoming very evil. And I can understand that, because there's many people that you, Matthew, would describe as the liberal left, or the progressive sort of people in this world, that believe that the world is becoming freer and people are having more rights, and they're being able to free. They're becoming more free to choose to be who they want to be and choose to live their life the way they choose. And what used to be laws and what used to be commandments in the Bible, and what used to be a proper definition of right and wrong, and what is love and what is sin, it used to be properly defined. And those people who think the world is freer and a happier place today and a better place to live in would probably say that the last 200 years have been really restricted, and religion really held the world back, and all the rules and the regulations were unfair, and not everyone believes in the Christian God. And even many people who believe in the Christian God still think that the church and the way they practice the Bible is too restrictive and too full of rules and too rigid and not very loving. And it's true that many Christians and many churches, and the way churches would like to run the world, is very restrictive and can be unfair and very unloving. And you can have the truth. The truth can be accepted by most people in the world, but it's how you practice that truth that really counts. Like, you know yourself, Crystal, people can say that they love you, and that's almost meaningless. That's almost meaningless to you if they don't treat you like they're loving you. It's the actions that speak louder than words. And so the word "I love you" has become cheap today and meaningless. It really comes down to how people are treating you. And so the laws of God and what is supposed to be right and proper according to this ancient book that they call the Bible, what people perceive as good and right and right and righteous, in many people's beliefs, think that that's an old, restraining, restrictive law and shouldn't be considered as truth. So the whole world is throwing out the baby with the bathwater and saying they've been too restricted and held down by religion for too many years, and they've embraced the ideology that you can do whatever you like as long as you're not hurting people. And so many people 40 years ago, a man wouldn't live with a woman outside of wedlock without being married. But today, so many young couples live together for years and years, and some of them never get married because they think a marriage certificate is just a piece of paper, and they don't need.
That's what my brother said.
Yeah.
That's what my brother said.
So many people say that, and so many people believe it, and because of that, there's so many children growing up in single-parent homes, and there's so many fathers. A large proportion of black children, Negro children, are growing up without a father in the house, and that is like a real concern. How many single mothers are battling to provide for their children, and the children are growing up without the influence of a father. And I don't know how you could say that that's a good thing. Like, every child needs a father, and even if the father is a criminal, even if the father has got a bad temper, or the father sleeps around, everyone essentially, no matter what sort of evil person they are, they all have good attributes. And a child doesn't know that their father's a serial sex addict and sleeping around and cheating on women. He mightn't necessarily judge his father like that. His father's his daddy, and he loves him. And so many fundamental good things in the world are being broken down today, and what used to be accepted as right and proper is that the lines are getting rubbed out, and the rules are getting taken away. And as the world embraces this free new world, a world without rules and restraints, and a world without religion, like John Lennon said, wouldn't it be a good world without religion, without heaven or hell, and no religion too? Like he said, the world is losing its faith in religion, and losing its faith in the Bible, and losing its faith in the ways of God. And so many of the determining statistics are going up. There's so many single children growing up without fathers. There's so many females choosing to have abortions. There's so much. Yeah, there's so much sexually transmitted diseases. There's so many people dying of unnecessary disease. There's so many people starving and dying in the world, and the love has just totally gone out of the world. What people think of repressive and restrictive rules, the rules of Jesus, and the commandments of Jesus, and the things that Jesus taught people to do, are just different ways of expressing love for God and expressing love for your fellow man. And Jesus said, treat other people as you'd love to be treated. And no daughter should say that they'd like to grow up without a father. No son, if you asked him, would like to grow up with his father. But wives and mothers choose to expel a man out of the house and tell him to leave, and they cut the father out of the children's life. And if the child was asked, if the child was old enough, would you prefer daddy to be in your life, or would you prefer daddy to never see daddy again? Most children would, their eyes would fill with tears if you're going to take their father away. So the second part of so what do you think about what I've said so far, Crystal?
I have a problem with abortion. It's really all about the woman's selfishness and why they want to take the baby's life away. It has no choice whether it lives or dies. It's a newborn child.
Yeah. So
they throw it away like dogs, like animals.
Yeah.
I would rather take the baby myself than let some person just kill the baby.
Yeah. There's so many married couples. There's so many couples just living together in America, for instance, that would love a young child. If the world could just institute saying to young pregnant women, you can have your child to full term, and we'll give you a living wage. We'll give you like a pension for 20 years if you just have your child and allow someone else to bring your child up. And you'll always be given access to your child, but just don't have an abortion and kill your child because it's become a problem for you that you're pregnant. Consider happily married couples who'd love to bring your child up and give your child love. The problem with the world is so many Christians and the church seem to scream about abortions, but they don't offer any solutions. There's so many churches and so many Christians in the world, but they don't seem to offer any viable alternative for young girls.
Sorry to interrupt. Some of them actually do support abortions if you're in church.
Right. Yeah.
It's pro-woman choice. Why can't it be pro-baby?
Yeah, that's a good point. Why doesn't the unborn baby have rights? They seem to have no rights, do they?
It's not fair. And I heard of stories of mothers throwing their babies in trash cans.
Yeah.
That really sickens me.
Yeah. It's not a nice world, and you could look at every factor. Like statistically, it's been proven that 70% of Christian men masturbate to abortion or masturbate to pornography. And when you look into where pornography comes from, it comes from people in the sex industry acting, and they're not really making love to someone. They're just acting, and it's all a performance. And when you interview when people who in the porn industry are interviewed, you find out that males are having needles put into their penis to keep an erection and perform. And so many porn stars burn out and feel really guilty and feel really terrible. They have their relationships don't seem to last, and their boyfriend sleeps with other women that are friends of theirs, and it's very hard to maintain happy relationships for porn stars, and it's all an act. And there's a lot of women who choose the porn industry to earn money, but it destroys them from inside. But then there's a lot of pornography where women have been sex trafficked, and they're under bondage and under lock and key, and they're only let out to go and do the pornography, and then they're trapped in the room again. And so much pornography being made in the world is slavery. And if you look at every different so-called sin that the Bible identifies as wrong, there's just carnage happening in the world, and the world is just getting very dark and very evil. So on one hand, people think that they've got rights and the world is a whole lot freer. But if you ask the victims and you ask the people that are suffering because of people's choices, then you'll find out that the world isn't really a nice place.
Especially in America. Like, why are we complaining? There's other problems in the world going on, and we're complaining over the smallest things.
Yeah. So the second half of your question, question 3, we'll do 10 questions today. The second half of your question, question 3 is, and what would you do to change it? You know, the answer was answered by the Beatles in a very simple song, and the chorus went, and all you need is love. Da, 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 da. All you need is love. Jesus' message, the fundamental message of Jesus was love God with all your heart and love your fellow man as you love yourself. Jesus went on to say, just as I've loved you, you love other people. And so the Christian message can be really restrictive to some people, and some people reading this book would really object, but there's not many people who would reject love. And if the Christian church could somehow get the religion off it and get the restrictive ways out of it and get the harsh, judgmental, finger-pointing religious aspects out of the church, if they could just teach their people how to love and how to accept people for who they are, and how to love people no matter what sort of lifestyle they have, if they could just teach the world how to love people better, so that the answer to the world is more love. And Matthew's only heard the song Heal the World one time, and he was affected by the lyrics, and he even did a video on the actual song's lyrics. But I had a vision for the world in that song, and it would really be good if the world came to understand what love is. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the Apostle Paul defines what proper love is. And in the actual book, when this video is made into a book, he'll quote 1 Corinthians chapter 13 and say a proper expression of what true unconditional love is. And if you've never seen that scripture, you'll be able to read that underneath what I say here, and you'll be able to say, well, love like that would be extraordinary. So I'm going to quote the scripture, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more. So the scripture goes here, and so if you can read that definition of love and understand that love, and just imagine people having that sort of love, wouldn't the world be good if everyone who met each other loved each other like that? And that truly is the answer. And Matthew's got a book, 2 books called The Narrow Way, The Parables of Jesus Made Simple, and a second book called The Narrow Way, The Commandments of Jesus. And he'll put links to those books here. If you took the time and read those 2 books and come to a full understanding of what Jesus taught, you'd find that if the world understood what Jesus taught and practiced that, then the world would be a better place. What do you say, Crystal?
I wish the world was a better place. But did you hear about the shootings that kept happening just week after week after? I was so just sick to my stomach every time I heard it. I cannot listen to the news anymore.
Yeah, once again, as the rules leave society, as love leaves society, as people's connection to God leaves society, as the presence of God and the manifestation of God's presence leaves the churches, as people start to not understand who God is and not understand the message of love and not understand the person of Jesus as the source of love, the expression of love called Jesus, as Jesus' message leaves the earth, the world is getting more and more seriously out of sorts. And you've got laws in America that says people can own guns, and they can own guns for any reason, and they don't have to pass any real tests to own a gun. And because guns are so freely available and people have got free will and they can choose to be evil if they choose, people choose to get a gun and do all sorts of carnage. And some of them really want to make a name for themselves, and some of them don't really want to live, and they want to go and shoot a whole lot of people and kill themselves. There's all sorts of reasons why people do such horrific crimes, and it's really shocking when you find out the statistics of how many gun violent massacres have happened in the current year of 2023. It's really getting seriously wrong and seriously bad, and heaven feels pain a lot more than earth feels pain, and so it's really concerning, and I'm very aware that that's happening.
I'm sorry to bring that subject up. It just really bothers me. And also when you mentioned the church, most people in the church are more worried about themselves than their own, faith, and they claim that they're saved and clean. But whatever you do in the church, you don't do outside of church. So you can't play both sides of the coin.
Yeah. Well, Jesus had things to say about the current leaders of the church in his day, and they were called Pharisees, and he told them that they were hypocrites with the way that they lived their life. They said one thing and did another, and that's what you're saying, that people act a certain way in church, but when they come out of church, they're completely different people. And wouldn't it be good if they kept the ideals and practiced what was actually preached in church, rather than behaving like selfish, rude, judgmental individuals when they come out of church?
I'm not perfect either, but I have seen worse.
Yeah. Okay, so question 4. What was it like to die and then transition to heaven? Was it what you expected? First of all, I'll answer the second question. Was it what you expected? There's certain teachers. There's a Christian teacher called Kat Kerr, and you can look up videos about heaven by her on YouTube, and she's got 2 books that you can buy from her website, and Matthew will put a link to where you can buy those books right here in the book. But if you read her 2 books, Revealing Heaven, book 1 and book 2, you'll get an understanding of what heaven is like. But if you have no understanding of heaven, which most people don't have, heaven is just so far exceeds, so far more glorious and unbelievable when you get there than you ever expected. So I don't think many people could actually prepare themselves for the surprise and how
You're right.
glorious heaven is.
Right.
What's that?
No, I said you're right.
Yeah. So what was it like to die and transition to heaven? I was quite shocked when I died and I left my body and I was transported to heaven by a couple of angels. It was like a idyllic experience. I found myself standing above my unconscious body and my dead body, and then an angel came and got me and said that we're going to heaven. I went to heaven, and it was sort of shocking to come to the realization that I wasn't in my body anymore. I was standing witnessing my body, and the angel took me to heaven and introduced me to people, and I started my life in heaven. It's very hard. It was very shocking. I wasn't prepared to die. I wasn't ready to die. I was so young, and I had so many songs left in me. I had so many things planned. I had a concert tour I was in the middle of, and I had such a long life planned, and I had so many things that I wanted to do. There was so many charitable causes I wanted to be part of. I would have reorganized my finances. I would have did my will better. I would have had better preparations for what would be done with my estate and with my money if I had any idea that I was going to die. But they really treated me well in heaven. I was one thing about heaven is I'm not the most popular person in heaven. If I walk down the street in heaven, people know who I am because I perform in heaven. But I'm not a star in heaven. I'm not someone that everyone mobs. I'm not the most important person in heaven. When Jesus walks down the road in heaven, everyone wants to talk to him and everyone wants to approach him. But when I walk down the road in heaven, people will leave me be, and I can just engage with people if I want to. And I have fans in heaven, and people love me, and they do look at me, and they do say hello. But it's a whole different life in heaven.
Yes.
If you want to know more about my life in heaven, Matthew has 5 books before this one. Michael Jackson Speaks from Heaven, book 1 to 5, and you can find out more about my life in heaven and what I'm up to in heaven in those books. But my transition in heaven, something you might not know about heaven is heaven is very aware of what sort of life you had on earth and what sort of future you're going to have in heaven. They're very aware of what you need to transition. They've got the right people to talk to. They've got the right people to greet you. They've got the right people to counsel you, mentor you, and help you into your life in heaven to transition into doing what you're meant to do in heaven. And everything is prepared, and nothing takes God by surprise. My death was understood by God. It says in the Bible that when everyone is born, their days are written in a book. The day they're going to die is written in the book. It didn't take God by surprise. God had people in heaven that were going to help me transition in heaven. The person that's given to you to be like a mentor or a guide for you in heaven is the perfect person, and you transition, and you have other musicians as friends in heaven. I have a prophet called Kim Clement, who was a popular Christian prophet on earth, who took me aside and taught me to be like a prophet myself, like a singing prophet. And he took me under his wing and taught me and mentored me on how to be a good Christian person. I did have a belief in Jesus, and I love Jesus, and I had a relationship with Jesus on earth, even as a Jehovah's Witness, and I had a personal faith and relationship with Jesus. So I was ready to meet Jesus, but nothing could really prepare you for meeting Jesus face to face. When you look into the eyes of Jesus, his eyes are just pools of love. You just get overwhelmed by the love that he has in his eyes. And when you look into his eyes, you get the feeling, you get the thought in your head that he totally understands you and he totally sees you. And as much as I had many songs on earth, and as much as I did interviews and appeared in books, and as much as I tried to let the people of earth know who I was, that's nothing compared to what I saw in Jesus' eyes in the first 5 minutes. You know, it's really hard in this world to be seen and to be fully understood for who you are. And it's a battle on earth to find people that will take the time to investigate your life and investigate your feelings and your dreams and who you are and understand you fully. It's really hard to be seen, even harder for a star to be seen and appreciated for who they really are. But 5 minutes looking into the eyes of Jesus, you'll find that finally someone sees you and understands you. And that's the impression you get in the first 10 seconds of Jesus' eyes, that you finally have met your creator, someone who understands you implicitly and totally understands you. And when you look into Jesus' eyes, you know he could answer any question that you could come up with. You can look into his eyes and you see the galaxies of the world. You can see, you can look into his eyes and you can see creation. You can see the whole of creation being created in his eyes. And you can look into his eyes and go back in time into when he lived on earth. You can go back to creation when the Big Bang happened and the whole of the galaxies were created. Jesus gives you this impression that he knows everything and he's so wise and so understanding. He's not full of knowledge, because the world is full of knowledge and it's going to hell in a handbasket. He's not full of knowledge, he's full of wisdom. He's like his father, the Ancient of Days. He's just full of wisdom, and he's got the answer to any of your questions, and he just leaves you speechless. Or you can say in your spirit, in the essential center of yourself, is thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's very hard to look at Jesus in the eyes and stay on your feet. You just end up on your knees weeping, just can't believe how much he loves you. And for a person who tried to be honest and tried to express himself in song and tried to share with people his heart and his motivations in interviews that I did, 5 minutes with Jesus totally was the most transforming thing that ever happened to me. So part of being transitioned into heaven is to actually meet Jesus. And once you meet him and spend 5 minutes with him, you know that you'll never have a problem again.
That was a lot to take in.
What's that?
That was a lot to take in. I was like really just drilling it into my head.
Yeah.
And I'm like kind of emotional a little bit. I don't know if that's because, I don't know, it's hard to explain what I'm feeling right now.
Well, we'll just go to question 5 today, and then we'll pace this out over the next few weeks. So what's that?
So do you get the same feeling that I'm getting right now, or is it just myself?
Me as Matthew wants to comment that as Michael was explaining Jesus and what it's like to meet Jesus, it was totally captivating to see Jesus and experience Jesus through his eyes and through that description. And I, as Matthew, has met Jesus in the flesh 10 times and had interactions with Jesus, and I've seen a portion of the love in his eyes, but I've never seen that supernatural Jesus in heaven with the love overflowing out of his eyes. I've never seen creation in his eyes, and I've never experienced what Michael just shared with us there. It was so precious. I was just caught up with his description, and I just loved hearing about Jesus. So even though I'm a person who's met Jesus 400 times in visions and 10 times in the flesh, and even though I've been to heaven and met Jesus and met God, it's very hard to comprehend the Jesus and meeting Jesus like Michael just sings. So it's quite overwhelming. It's part of the reason why I've said that we'll go to the end of question 5 today, and we'll just leave it as part 1.
Okay, because like sometimes I feel like crying during certain questions, and I'm just like, is it just me? Am I going crazy? Like, it's just the presence is so peaceful, and it's just really hard to explain. Like, whenever he speaks through you, it's just, you know.
Yeah, well, that's called the presence of God, and it's just the presence of God is manifesting on you because there's so much power, spiritual power coming out of Michael's words. Me as Matthew couldn't speak to you and make you have that feeling. It's only real evidence that something supernatural is happening, because me as Matthew wouldn't make you feel like that. But when Michael speaks from heaven through me, it makes you feel really peaceful and happy and joyful.
And I really couldn't. There's just no explanation. There's really no explanation for it, but it's like a good feeling that I cannot explain.
Yeah, well, what was happening, and you may not have known it, is when Michael was describing meeting Jesus, you weren't actually in earth, you were in heaven, experiencing the pleasures and the feelings of heaven. And he actually, describing Jesus, took you to heaven in your own spirit, and you're actually there watching him meet Jesus, and you're feeling how you'd feel if you're in heaven. So for you to say it's unexplainable, that's actually what heaven is like. So question 5, during your time on earth, what were some of the things you enjoyed doing on your free time when you didn't have to do interviews? So there's a number of things I liked doing. I liked spending my time with fashion designers designing my outfits. I was personally involved with every outfit that I wore. I had designers design what I told them that I wanted, and then we'd have a fitting, and I'd make changes and suggestions for change. And it was just so much fun designing my clothes. Matthew follows a number of fan pages on Facebook, and every time one of the fan page posts come up, he reads it. He just reads it because he's my friend. And he said to me the other day, didn't you just get sick of doing all the clothes? And I was able to say, no, I love that. I absolutely, that was my favorite thing. All the clothes and dressing and presenting myself in so many different ways. So to Matthew doesn't spend much time buying clothes. He just wears track pants, and he's got 80 different T-shirts with like a Christian sort of message, positive message on them. And that's his clothes. He wears track pants and a T-shirt. And Matthew could never be a performer and dress well, because he just couldn't be bothered doing it. So I'm so opposite of Matthew. Another thing also that I like doing, and I couldn't do in one of the books. Perhaps we could teach you, Crystal, how to talk in my voice, and perhaps you could do interviews with me. But when I did interviews with Matthew, I say it in one of the books that I can't explain the food in heaven through Matthew, because Matthew's not really into food like I am. I'm like a real foodie. I know every single cuisine and every single dish in every cuisine, and I can explain all the spices and the flavors, and I can explain every sort of form of food, and I absolutely love food. And yet Matthew hasn't got an understanding of different foods. So I can't use his voice to explain the food because he can't even understand what I'm talking about. So another thing I used to like doing was going out to restaurants and having food, or having food cooked by chefs that I owned, and the chef wouldn't just do a menu for what I was going to eat for the week. I would be involved, and I knew so many dishes and knew so many cuisines. I could just order what I wanted of my personal chef, and they cook it. But one of the best things about going to restaurants is sitting down and sharing a meal with a person, have a good conversation, and meeting people face to face and talking heart to heart. I'm a person who had a lot of heart, so I didn't drink a lot of coffee, and maybe people wouldn't know that about me, but the act of sitting down and having a drink and or coffee, and meeting with someone face to face and having a heart to heart connection. I can talk on surface things. I can talk about the weather. I can talk about sports. I can talk about different songs that you like. But I like speaking really deep. I like a heart to heart connection. And I found going out with friends and going out with people that I did business with, and meeting face to face and sitting opposite each other, sharing a meal and having heart to heart conversations. I really enjoyed that. I wasn't much into TV. I wasn't. I enjoyed movies, but I wasn't so much into seeing movies or TV. I like the creative aspect of movies, and you can't really say that I didn't watch movies, because I did enjoy movies, but it wasn't my favorite pastime. My favorite pastime was designing my clothes, working with that, and going out and meeting people face to face. And but my absolute favorite thing I did, which was like a recreation, was performing concerts. That was the greatest love of my life, was performing, and it really brought me joy. And I think you can be one of the most luckiest people in the world if you're actually doing a job that you love as much as I love that. Another thing that I used to do in my free time was I used to visit hospitals and visit children and orphanages and places where children were, and children just made me come alive. And Jesus said that we can't really enter the kingdom of God unless we become like a child. And he really admires childlike faith. And childlike faith isn't immature faith. It's having faith that God can do what you want, and God is a God of promises, and God is the one that can achieve your dreams. So having a childlike faith is just this simple faith that God is who he says he is, and he really loves you, and he wants to look out for you. So mixing with children is like mixing with like a God force, because when children are young, they're so innocent and they're without sin, and they're not used to doing bad things except stealing cookies off the plate of their mothers when she's cooked a fresh batch of cookies. A mother could never leave a plate of cookies out if she didn't want some of them stolen. Kids are just naturally sneaky, and they do sneaky things, but not as though kids don't do bad things, but they're not planning evil, and they're not really evil. They're just so innocent. And so I loved meeting sick children and meeting children with needs, and loving on children, and that's why I built Neverland to give unlucky children and underprivileged children some time and some fun, and you can learn a lot from children. There's a famous speaker in the Christian circles called Heidi Baker, and she's got a ministry called Iris Ministries, and she had professional doctorates from theological colleges, and she was a doctor in theology, and she knew so much about God, and she had experienced a pretty good Christian life, and she went to Mozambique, the poorest country in the world at the time, and she was going to get to start as a missionary, and she said, "What do I do now?" And Jesus said, "Go and sit with the children." And she says, "I've got a doctorate. I know how to do missions. I know how to do healing. Surely you don't want me to sit with the children." And he sent her to the rubbish dump, where the children were living on a rubbish dump, eating food and scavenging and trying to live with starvation at a rubbish dump. And he sent her to a rubbish dump to sit with the children and talk to the children, and the children taught her all the wisdom how to be a good missionary. So children don't check what they're going to say. They don't think of the consequences of what they're going to say. They just say what's on their heart. A bit like your former president, Donald Trump. He just used to speak without thinking. He didn't speak with any idea of consequences. As a thought came to his mind, he just used to speak it. Well, children are like that. Children just speak what's on their heart. They're very honest with you. You can play them a song and ask them what they think of the song. They say, "That song's boring. I don't like that song." But an adult wouldn't say that, because they think they would offend you. And everyone that used to get around me used to try and impress me or make me happy. And sometimes you just need to get around someone who's honest. So there's some of the things I love. Did any of that surprise you, Crystal?
Not really.
That's because you're my fan and you know all about me.
What is your favorite outfit that somebody designed for you or you designed?
I can't answer that for you because Matthew has no understanding of my outfits, so I could try and share that with you, but Matthew hasn't got an understanding of that particular outfit, so he wouldn't be able to. Matthew's just got to go and plug in his computer. The battery's running out, so I can't. You could ask me yourself privately, and I could probably answer you back to your spirit. But Matthew can't be used to bring that answer to you. And I'm sorry that I've got limitations speaking through Matthew. Just like I shared, Matthew can't be used to explain the food in heaven, because he's got no understanding of food on earth. He's got no understanding of all my different outfits, so I wouldn't be able to access his mind and point him to a certain outfit on a certain concert, because he's got no understanding. So can you understand that?
Yes, but the history outfit's my favorite.
The what?
The history outfit from the history tour.
Right. Did I like that?
A lot of people do.
Yeah. You'll find that the popular opinion of people used to make me happy, but sometimes, let me say it this way, sometimes you have a song that's on an album that doesn't become number one, but it's your favorite song. It really expresses something that was really important to you. I wrote so many songs for each of my albums that most of my songs became hits, but for a normal artist, they have 2 or 3 songs on an album, and their other songs don't get too popular, but sometimes there can be one of those songs that's the most meaningful song to the artist, but it doesn't become a single, doesn't become a hit, but it's their favorite song. So you may find that if you talk to me personally and you had a catalogue of all my clothes, you may find that sometimes what people like the most as their favorite sort of outfit wasn't necessarily my favorite outfit.
You see that a lot.
Yeah. So, okay, it was really good spending this time and talking to me and doing the first 5 things. We may do 6 parts to this interview and do 5 questions each time. It's really enjoyable answering your questions, Crystal. Have you got anything to finish this series of 5 chapters? Any closing remarks that you want to make?
That's hard to answer.
Well, do your best.
I'm just trying to process you and Matthew talking at the same time. It's like, I'm getting used to it.
Matthew's had a lot of practice. He's interviewed at least 40 different people out of the Bible, or Christians that have lived since Bible times. So he's very used to carrying the voice or speaking in the voice of someone else. So the idea of me speaking through him and him being very confident that it's me speaking isn't strange to him, but he can freely understand that it would be a strange phenomenon for you, for you not to be able to tell sometimes when it's actually Matthew or it's me speaking. You'll know it's me speaking because whenever I talk about Matthew, I'll be using his name. But sometimes Matthew, in the midst of an interview, will take over in his own voice, and he won't realize until he said a couple of sentences that the person speaking to him has stopped and he started talking himself. So he's still getting more and more experience. But like anything, you become very practiced the more you do it. So by the end of these 30 questions, you'll be a whole lot more comfortable at hearing my voice.
Right. It's something I just don't do every day. So it's, and talking to you in person, like if you were alive, would probably be less awkward.
Would be less awkward, yeah. Yeah, that would be true. And I'd be able to see you face to face and you'd be looking into my eyes and you could see all my expressions. You could tell when I'm joking. You could tell when I'm really serious. You could tell when I'm sad. You could tell when I'm happy by all the expressions on my face. But all you've got with Matthew is a voice. Rightio, so we'll close it off there. And if you enjoyed this video, just press like. If you want to comment on this video, please comment. And if you like this interview, just remember there'll be up to 6 parts to the interview. This was part 1.